Housing is a necessity. It is a basic right to be able to have a roof over your head. And when we talk about ending poverty, you can't focus on your job and some of these other things, or even your kids and their education, if they are worried about where they're going to sleep at night.
This is Hourglass, the podcast for United Way of King County in Seattle. Coming up, hear how we and other United Ways on the West Coast spend our time addressing the homelessness crisis. We'll also chat about United Way's Our Neighbor Fund and a volunteer opportunity at Lambert House. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for tuning in. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, there are more than 650,000 people experiencing homelessness in the United States, and about 35% of those people live in the West Coast states of Washington, Oregon, and California. Oregon ranks first among all states with the highest percentage of families with children experiencing homelessness, while Washington ranks fourth and California ranks fifth. Washington and California have the most people in our nation experiencing chronic homelessness, which refers to those who have experienced homelessness for at least 1 year or have experienced at least 4 episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years. But these numbers only illustrate what we on the West Coast already know. Homelessness is a deeply entrenched, multi-layered, multifaceted problem that took years to develop, and amidst a polarized nation that can't agree on what needs to be done about it, will take years to resolve. Behind the numbers is often a 1 step forward, 2 steps back movement toward progress. As is the case with Oregon, whose urban areas reported increased shelter capacity in 2023, but also had greater numbers of families in need of shelter because of the shortage of affordable housing. And the numbers often provide fodder for detractors, as is the case here in King County. In 2019, County and City of Seattle officials were lauded for creating a regional homelessness authority to address the crisis. Though data from HUD's Homeless Management Information System showed that the regional authority helped move 5,600 people from homelessness to permanent housing in 2022 alone, folks still point to news that dominates headlines. Namely that in 5 years, the authority has been led by 2 permanent directors, 2 interim directors, and 1 acting director, and it has endured countless concerns about financial mismanagement. Still, those who work to solve the homelessness crisis forge ahead, even as organizations like the National Low-Income Housing Coalition proclaim what many of us already know, that recent homelessness increases are due in part to the expiration of pandemic-era resources that once prevented individuals from falling into homelessness. Prevention is now at the heart of the work we do at United Way of King County. We believe the best way to address homelessness is to prevent it from happening in the first place. From providing rental assistance and eviction protection for those at risk of losing housing, to strengthening the response for those who have already lost their homes, we're working side by side with communities and agencies to offer our neighbors housing stability and support. United Way also partners with Housing Connector, a Seattle-based organization that has worked with thousands of landlords to gain early indication of when households fall behind on rent and deliver just-in-time intervention to stabilize families at an average cost of $525 per person. And we are proud to say that we are not the only United Way on the West Coast committed to tackling the homelessness crisis. At a recent United Way Western Regional Conference in Las Vegas, we hooked up with United Ways across the West Coast to share best practices and learn about other approaches to tackling homelessness. We learned a lot about the impacts being made by United Ways in Oregon and California. First, there's United Way of the Columbia-Willamette in Portland, which focuses on eviction prevention. Lauren Bello, Community Impact Manager of United Way of the Columbia-Willamette, said that the organization not only works with people that are facing eviction, but those at risk of eviction.
So if you have an eviction letter, you can come to us. And we work with several organizations to make sure you don't get evicted. And then the other part is if you don't have an eviction letter, we can still work with you if you're, at fear, at risk of getting one. And so we cover rent support for families in a few counties in Oregon and Washington County, Clackamas County, Multnomah County. And so, you can call our offices, United Way of Columbia Willamette, and we will support you. It's a pretty easy process. Our team is ready to help. And one of the things that we also do is take in consideration ALICE data. So we're not using, the poverty line. We're working with individuals who are working families and working professionals. They are facing a reality that a lot of folks are facing in our country and in the world, that even with a paycheck, sometimes it's not enough. And so we make sure we're taking that data into consideration, what is the actual cost of living for families in the Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County. And so another project that we work in partnership, I should say, was with the Joint Office of Homeless Services. And so we did a distribution of $10 million for housing and homeless services providers. And this grant was specifically for capacity building. One of the things that we know in the housing and homeless services areas or providers is that one of the biggest challenges is capacity, is having enough people to really support the people that are there facing housing instability, essentially. And so this was a very powerful project to work with the Joint Office of Homeless Services in the United Way of Columbia Willamette to help those providers that are out there on the street, first responders, to people who need our support, and to making sure that the mental support they need, the health support they need is there.
Further south, there's United Way California Capital Region in Sacramento. Its CEO, Dr. Dante Early, said that the organization has helped people experiencing homelessness as the State Department of Health Care Services has repurposed funding through its Medi-Cal waiver programs. Medi-Cal programs provide home and community-based services, family planning services, specialty mental health services, and managed care to specific groups of eligible individuals. Now it has extended that funding to those facing the possibility of homelessness.
In California, they have reframed the Medi-Cal waiver. And so they have understood at a state level that homelessness is not only an issue at the bottom of the stream or at the end of the stream of our health, but it's actually part of our health. And so Department of Healthcare Services in California now actually pays for helping folks with their first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposits. It helps to get things off your credit. And so we've been able to harness the power of that program to provide services to folks in our local region. And so since September, we've actually housed 148 households, roughly 300 individuals, and around 100 kiddos since September. And that's utilizing this program. We are on track next year to double in size. The folks that we have served right now in our system, we have roughly 500 or so families that are being navigated to housing as we speak.
Katie Castagna, president and CEO of United Way of Monterey County in Salinas, California, said her organization administered federal rental assistance funding to keep people in their homes.
As a final portion of that grant, we've moved into what we call housing stability, and that looks like a grant to half a dozen nonprofit and public entity partners in our community to provide case management, rental deposit assistance, and other financial and resource connections for people facing potential eviction or needing to actually get back into a place if they've been evicted. So it includes things like legal assistance and case management and coordination, working with our local housing authority to make better connection to Section 8 vouchers and so forth.
Lisa G. Carreño, President and CEO of United Way of the Wine Country in Santa Rosa, California, said that the organization focuses on homelessness prevention by helping individuals and families build financial stability.
United Way of the Wine Country's community impact initiatives are very focused on economic and family financial stability building. So our primary community impact investments are in emergency food and shelter program grant making in Sonoma County, Lake County, and Mendocino County. And we do that in collaboration with the United Way Bay Area.
United Ways across the West Coast know that when it comes to solving the homelessness crisis, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. We address the needs based on our communities, which can differ greatly. But what we all have in common is our commitment to see our solutions through.
Housing is a necessity. It is a basic right to be able to have a roof over your head. And when we talk about ending poverty, you can't focus on your job and some of these other things, or even your kids and their education, if they are worried about where they're going to sleep at night. Our local United Way actually is now 101 years old, and roughly for 100 years, although we have supported organizations around us in the Sacramento region in doing housing and addressing our homeless issues, we actually had not directly provided services ourselves. About a year ago, particularly post-COVID, I think we've all experienced in the Western region an influx, a significant increase in folks that are becoming unhoused. And so our local United Way California Capital Region, we jumped in.
To learn more about what your local United Way in King County is doing to address homelessness, log on to uwkc.org. Our neighbors are doing their best to keep food on the table, but it's not been easy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, grocery prices rose to their biggest increase in 50 years. Most of the federal dollars that addressed the food crisis during the pandemic are gone, but grocery bills remain high. That's why United Way of King County has launched the Our Neighbor Fund. We're raising $12.5 million to invest in strategies that will feed families in the coming year. Our Neighbor Fund will help expand our home grocery program to provide 5,000 families with free groceries each week. And it will help an additional 100 schools in King County implement the Breakfast After the Bell program, impacting 49,000 students. We're asking you to please make a gift to the Our Neighbor Fund so that we can serve more of our neighbors. For more information or to make a donation, log on to uwkc.org/donate. Looking for a volunteer opportunity? If you have experience facilitating youth support groups, consider volunteering at Lambert House, an organization that empowers lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth to develop their leadership, social, and life skills. Lambert House is recruiting volunteers for its gender discussion and transgender support group. This group meets every Monday at 7 p.m. at Lambert House in Seattle. For more information, log on to lamberthouse.org. At United Way of King County, we are working side by side with communities to build an equitable future for everyone. Hourglass United Way is a podcast that highlights how we and our partners spend time making a difference in our communities. Our work is made possible by the generous donations from people like you. Please send comments and suggestions about our podcast to hourglassunitedway@gmail.com. To learn more about our work or to support United Way, log on to uwkc.org. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for listening. Until next time.